The U.S. president was denied the usual red carpet welcome and forced to go out of the ass of Air Force One, observers say. China's leaders have been accused of delivering a calculated diplomatic snub to Barack Obama after the U.S. president was not provided with a staircase to leave his plane during his chaotic arrival in Hangzhou ahead of the start of the G20. Chinese authorities have rolled out the red carpet for leaders including India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Russian President Vladimir Putin, South Korean President Park Geun-hye, Brazil's President Michel Temer and British Prime Minister Theresa May, who touched down on Sunday morning. But the leader of the world's largest economy, who is on his final tour of Asia, When Obama did find his way onto a red carpet on the tarmac below, there were heated altercations between U.S. and Chinese officials, with one Chinese official caught on video shouting, "This is our country. This is our airport." The reception that President Obama and his staff got when they arrived here Saturday afternoon was bruising, even by Chinese standards, the New York Times reported. Jorge Guajardo, Mexico's former ambassador to China, said he was convinced Obama's treatment was part of a calculated snub. "These things do not happen by mistake. Not with the Chinese," Guajardo, who hosted Presidents Enrique Peña Nieto and Felipe Calderón during his time in Beijing, told The Guardian. "I've dealt with the Chinese for 6 years. I've done these visits. I took Xi Jinping to Mexico. I received 2 Mexican presidents in China. I know exactly how these things get worked out. It's down to the last detail in everything. It's not a mistake. It's not," Guajardo added, "it's a snub. It's a way of saying, you know, you're not that special to us. It's part of the new Chinese arrogance. It's part of stirring up Chinese nationalism. It's part of saying, China stands up to the superpower. It's part of saying, and by the way, you're just someone else to us. It works very well with the local audience." Why did it happen? The former diplomat, who was ambassador from 2007 until 2013, added, "I guess it is part of Xi Jinping playing the nationalist card. That's my guess." Bill Bishop, a China expert whose cynicism newsletter tracks the country's political scene, agreed that Obama's welcome looked suspiciously like a deliberate slight intended to make the Americans look diminished and weak. "It sure looks like a straight-up snub," Bishop said. "This clearly plays very much into the idea, look, we can make the American president go out of the ass of the plane." Bishop added, "We've no proof. It could clearly just be a cock-up, but it would be a stunningly large cock-up given how well these people plan for all these events and especially for something like the G20. The idea that they have been preparing for well over a year for the G20 but suddenly there be a malfunction with the ramp just for one president, that really strains credulity." Chinese officials have yet to comment on the reception offered to Obama. The U.S. president offered a diplomatic reply when asked to comment on the airport kerfuffle on Sunday during a joint press conference with Theresa May. "I wouldn't overcrank the significance of it because, as I said, this is not the first time that these things happen and it doesn't just happen here. It happens in a lot of places including, by the way, sometimes our allies," Obama said, adding that none of this detracts from the broader scope of the relationship. Obama suggested his Chinese hosts might have found the size of the U.S. delegation a little overwhelming. "We've got a lot of planes, a lot of helicopters, a lot of cars and a lot of guys. If you are a host country, sometimes it may feel a little bit much." Susan Rice, the U.S. National Security Advisor, admitted she had been surprised by the handling of the president's arrival. "They did things that weren't anticipated," she told reporters. Susan Rice, the U.S. National Security Advisor, admitted she had been surprised by the handling of the president's arrival. "They did things that weren't anticipated," she told reporters. In the lead-up to the final meeting between Obama and Xi, experts had predicted the pair would seek to part ways on a positive note with the announcement that the world's 2 largest polluters would ratify the Paris Climate Agreement. However, Obama's unconventional welcome, and a series of subsequent skirmishes and quarrels between Chinese and U.S. officials and journalists, were a reminder of the underlying tensions. The Washington Post said Obama's bumpy landing in China was a fitting reflection of how the relationship between these two world powers has become frayed and fraught with frustration. I think this time, maybe the seams were showing a little more than usual in terms of some of the negotiations and jostling that takes place behind the scenes, Obama admitted on Sunday. Official statements issued by both sides on Saturday, as the pair held more than 4 hours of bilateral meetings, hinted at some of the disagreements between the world's two largest economies. According to a White House statement, Obama told Xi of America's unwavering support for upholding human rights. China opposes any other country interfering in its internal affairs in the name of human rights issues, Xi told Obama in response, according to Xinhua, Beijing's official news wire. In an interview with CNN, Obama warned Beijing against muscle flexing in the South China Sea. Xi told Obama his country would unswervingly safeguard its claims in the region. Bishop said, other than in climate, in most areas of the U.S.-China relationship there is increasing amounts of friction and some actually increasingly quite hot friction around the South China Sea and some of these military interactions in the region. The U.S. is looking a little weak and a little tired, and I think Beijing is happy to put anybody in their place when they can. I think they see the opportunity to make Obama look weak, he added. Both Bishop and Guajardo said the reported confrontations between Chinese and U.S. officials and journalists following Obama's arrival in Hangzhou were par for the course in China. That is just typical China. I remember when my president came, one of the Mexican press corps came out of it with stitches, Guajardo recalled. But Obama's unceremonious arrival was unusual and surely deliberate, the former Mexican ambassador added. They don't overlook these things by mistake. It's not who they are. It's not the way they do these things, he said. Yeah. The G20 summit got off to a contentious start Saturday with Chinese officials reportedly confronting National Security Advisor Susan Rice and other U.S. officials in at least 3 incidents, as President Obama arrived in China for the 2-day international economic talks. Within minutes of Obama arriving on Air Force One, a member of the Chinese delegation started screaming at White House staff, according to reporters on the tarmac. One reporter described the scene as a bit of chaos, as the Chinese official appeared furious about journalists being so near Obama's arrival, though they purportedly were standing in the area Chinese officials had designated for them. White House officials reportedly told the Chinese official that the U.S. press corps was staying for the American president arriving on the U.S. aircraft. When the White House official insisted the U.S. would set the rules for its own leader, her Chinese counterpart shot back, the Associated Press reported. "This is our country. This is our airport," the Chinese official yelled. The exchange with Rice reportedly happened when the Chinese official attempted to prevent her from walking to the U.S. motorcade, as she crossed a media rope line. The official purportedly spoke angrily to her before a Secret Service agent intervened. The official purportedly spoke angrily to her before a Secret Service agent intervened. When asked about the incident later by a reporter, Rice seemed less than amused by the incident. "They did things that weren't anticipated," she said, the AP reported. A White House spokesman and China's foreign ministry did not respond immediately to requests by Reuters for comment. To be sure, China is taking every precaution to ensure the summit, in the eastern city of Hangzhou, goes smoothly. But the incidents appeared to underscore the community country's contentious relationship with the United States and other Western nations and efforts to control the media. Obama has raised issues of freedom of the press on previous visits to China, which insists that media must follow the party line and promote positive propaganda. Foreign reporters are often physically prevented from covering sensitive stories, but altercations involving foreign government officials are rare. U.S. officials also apparently got into a heated exchange with Chinese security official before Obama arrived at China's Westlake State Guest House, where he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping to formally enter their respective countries, the world's 2 biggest carbon emitters, into last year's Paris climate change agreement. The ceremony included UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and took place ahead of the summit, which officially starts Sunday. White House staffers and Secret Service officers trying to enter the state guest house separately from reporters were stopped at a security gate and purportedly argued about how many members of the U.S. delegation would be allowed to enter. "The president is arriving here in an hour," one White House staffer was overheard saying in exasperation. However, the most heated exchange purportedly occurred between a Chinese security official and a Chinese official helping Americans who got angry about how the guards were treating the White House staff. "You don't push people," the Chinese official purportedly yelled in Chinese. "No one gave you the right to touch or push anyone around." Another Chinese official stepped between the two when the security official purportedly looked ready to throw a punch. "Calm down, please. Calm down," White House official purportedly said. A foreign ministry official said in Chinese, "Stop, please. There are reporters here." Another heated exchange between White House press officers and Chinese officials purportedly occurred minutes later, over how many American print reporters would be allowed inside the building. The disagreement continued until about 20 minutes before Obama arrived and purportedly ended with 10 of the reporters being allowed inside, despite White House officials arguing there was plenty of empty space for them to stand at the back of the room.
Yeah.